Hey everyone, what is going on? My name is Red Archer Live, and in today's video we're going to be discussing the current situation with Starbreeze Studios. They're in some very bad financial trouble at the moment, and we're going to be discussing what's caused it, what will the knock-on effects be of it, and anything in between to discuss. So we're going to get into it, talk about the whole situation. You guys have asked me to make a video on this, and I wanted to discuss it anyway, so I figured why not get it sorted. But before I do want to thank very quickly my friend over on Twitter, Matt Helzor. I will link his Twitter as a result of this help, but he sat me down and explained a lot of the more business side of things that I don't understand. I haven't studied business at any point in my academic life. I don't know the business jargon about stock markets and all sorts of things like that, so I really appreciate the bits that I needed translating, going to him and him being happy to help explain everything to me for this video. So thank you, Matt, you are a lifesaver. And finally, for those of you who saw my update on Wednesday about me having migraines, or for those of you who don't know, I have been quite ill with migraines this last week. I've been to see a doctor, and basically I'm on medication, I'm feeling a lot better, hence making this video now, but I've been banned from using headphones for the time being because of them, because they think that's one of the reasons that it's been accelerated in the amount of pain I've been getting. So, as a result, I can't balance sound levels as perfect as I want to. I'm having to use my laptop speakers, so if there are any tiny sound issues here and there that do make it through into the video, just be wary that it's not me being lazy, it's me being unable to spot it, and I'm going to try and edit this less to try and make it easy on my head as well. So, I'm not being lazy. If there are any errors, you probably won't even see them. I think the video will probably come out just fine, but just for the more eagle-eyed of you, it's just a little heads up and an apology, just in case anyone notices any different. We're going to get into this video with a very cause and effect style, talking about what's caused the issues for Starbreeze, and then the effects it's going to have in the short and long term. So let's get into it and talk about how this all began. Now, with a video of this style, it's best to start where the bad news first began, and it began with a post from Goris from the Overkill team. For those of you who don't know, he's one of the console developers who are working on getting console DLC out for Payday 2 on Xbox One, PS4, and presumably still Switch, but we've heard very little in the almost year the game's been out, so I don't even know whether to include Switch anymore because I genuinely don't know. But he's one of the console development team, and he hasn't posted in the Steam forum where he normally posts to give us updates on DLC progress, and he hasn't touched it for about a month. It's been quite a while. He said he wouldn't talk to us until there was something worth sharing, and he broke his silence back on Monday in the early hours of the morning, where he posted, but it wasn't with anything good. He simply said, "Hi everyone, I am really sorry to inform you that there will not be any update before Christmas, and I am afraid this is all I can share at the moment." As you can imagine, this was not what we expected at all. He'd recently confirmed we were going to get Crime Spree, Team AI, Storyline, Continental Coins, and Joy all in the next update at the very least. He said that it was going to be the biggest update ever. He was hyping up, so we all expected that the next time he posted it was going to be something big like a release date or more confirmed content. To get this very cryptic message that we really didn't understand very much to start with no explanation as to why the DLC wasn't coming out just yet, it was very weird, and no one really knew what to make of it, until everyone realised that at about the same time that Goris posted this, reports started coming out that Starbreeze Studios had filed for reconstruction. So for those of you like me who aren't an expert on the whole business side of things with companies, reconstruction is a term used when a company is almost bankrupt, but instead of filing for bankruptcy, they basically freeze all our assets, stop working on a bunch of projects that they have going, and take a step back to look at what's coming in the future for their company. They want to look at all their different perspectives, all the different projects, and say, right, if we carry on the way we're going to go bankrupt, so let's see what we can do and basically improve our company for the future so we don't go under. The best way to think about it is if you're using a slot machine, whenever you put your money into that slot machine, you don't know what you're going to get out of it. So reconstruction in that context is like taking a step back and not using that slot machine until you can reassure yourself or have some form of proof that you are going to get something good out of it if you use it. But it's also worth noting for anyone who's concerned about this that the reconstruction framework will include salaries to employees of Starbreeze, such as those at Overkill and so on. However, during the reconstruction period, there will be no payments made to suppliers for services or goods that relate to the period prior to the filing for reconstruction. So, in other words, if they were working on developing a game or an update or a DLC for something before they filed, they will not be able to work on that for the time being, but the staff will still be paid as if they were. They're going to be paid as normal, just all projects are being paused so they can hang on to as much money as they possibly can. So let's get into it and talk about why they've come to this point. So I don't need to give much context at this point. You all know what happened with Ray World War II last year. It was a complete commercial failure, and it was a sad one as well because it was a great deal of wasted potential. There was a lot to like about that game, but a lot of it was squandered by poor management. It was rushed out the door before it was ready, and it was poorly marketed. I did do a video talking about this and Starbreeze's confession of the poor sales. I think it was very early this year. A link to which will be in the description. It is well worth watching for context, even if it's an old video. It is really good to just catch up and see where things were back then compared to where they are now. But Raid World War II was not a very good success for the company. It was a very big failure. Most of the money that got put into it was just drained away with nothing to show for it, and it did impact the company a great deal, but they carried on and they didn't need to file for reconstruction at that point. Now let's move on to November this year, where they released Overkill's The Walking Dead, which at this point we can now say safely has been released to very mixed reviews. We've had some people saying that they love the game, they've been playing it to death and will continue to do so. We also have a great deal of people who say they will not touch it with a 10-foot barge pole, they think it was constructed poorly, developed poorly, and they are never going to play it again, and they got refunds on Steam for playing it less than a couple of hours, etc, etc. There has been a very, very big difference in the reviews from certain people, but I've noticed that the more negative reviews has come from the media outlets, such as newspapers and game review websites and YouTubers, whereas the more positive reviews seem to be from singular people who reviewed the game, for instance, on Steam. So, more media-based, it seems that the game has been a commercial failure, and in terms of sales, I don't know the sales figures, but I think it's pretty clear from the situation and from Starbreeze's own confession last week, Overkill's The Walking Dead, once again like Raid, did not sell nearly as much as they wanted it to. I don't know the specific figures, I imagine it was a bit more than Raid, but not leagues ahead. So it's really sad to see that a game that Overkill's been working on, or at least talking about for so long, has just not done nearly as well as they expected it to do. The game on PC is currently in Season 2 of content, which is the first DLC expansion, because Season 1 was in the base game. And I guess I would say it's not going to get much more DLC beyond that because of the current reconstruction circumstances, but time will tell. It depends on how much is ready to release for the game already, and we can take it from there based on what happens going forward in the next few months. However, considering the reconstruction, I don't ever see this game now coming to consoles. I have been told that supposedly the console version has been put in what's called a terminated state, and that $10 million was wasted by Starbreeze on a contract that was supposed to put the game over to Xbox One and PS4. Because of the commercial failure and because of the reconstruction, not only has that money been wasted, but that game is now most likely not going to be ported to console. So if you're waiting for the game on Xbox One or PS4, from what I've heard, chances are you aren't ever going to get to play it. If you put Raid World War II and Overkill's The Walking Dead alongside each other, you see two games that had a great deal of potential that was squandered, but also were both commercial failures for Starbreeze Studios. It's put the studio close to bankruptcy, but not close enough that they have to file and say that you're bust, but they need to find another way out, hence why they filed for reconstruction. So now we've got an idea of the base cause of this reconstruction, let's talk about what's going to happen going forward with their most popular games. I've already talked about The Walking Dead, how I feel there's going to be less content for it, and how I don't think it'll come to consoles. But let's stick with the theme of consoles for a moment before we move on to Payday 3 and discuss the Payday 2 DLC that was supposedly in the works for Xbox One, PS4 and maybe Switch. Again, I still don't know what's going on that front, so I'll talk about Xbox One and PS4 because with Switch, it is honestly a mystery at this point. I genuinely don't know whether we'll ever get an answer, and if we do, then praise be, we'll see when it comes out. But with Payday 2 on consoles, they literally at this point could no longer afford to develop new content at this time. Not permanently. I see you typing in angry comments saying that consoles have been betrayed again. It's only at this time. They might not ever update consoles again if things go badly with this reconstruction period, but there is no reason to think other than they will actually update the console versions just a little ways off than they had originally anticipated to. Either way, why can't they develop new content? Well, as I already said, with reconstruction, you can't carry on putting money into things that were in progress before you filed, so that's already one reason why, but it costs a great deal of money at base to port the stuff via 505 games over onto consoles. It then costs a lot to have updating fees that you have to pay to Sony and Microsoft, on top of which you have taxes that apply as well, so it costs a great deal to actually put this content out for console, and as a result, it also explains on a very small side note why Raid never got any console updates, because Starbreeze probably saw how few people were playing the game and thought, it's not worth the money, let's not put any content over to those players, because they probably won't get enough out of it. But back to Payday 2 on consoles, as I've said now, it costs a great deal, and because of the reconstruction guidelines, it is now all for a service from the period prior to reconstruction. This whole service of getting content out for consoles that was already on PC, it was already in process, and so it has to be paused and put on ice for at least the time being. So we know now there'll be no new update in 2018. Will there be one in 2019? I hope so. I think they'll get out the reconstruction period on a better side, I really do, for reasons we will get into a little bit later in the video. But for the time being, there won't be any new DLC for Payday 2 on consoles, so it's a very sad state of affairs, but it's the position we're in and we're just going to have to go with it. And now we move on to Payday 3, which is in a great deal of jeopardy. Development plans for all games that Overkill and any other Starbreeze studio have been working on have been paused for 2019 and maybe even 2020 for the company's roadmap until they know what they're going to do going forward. So because they've paused it, until further notice, everything including Payday 3 is on ice. And yes, I know earlier I mentioned a video where I said about Raid World War 2 being a failure, Starbreeze admitting to it, and at the same time saying Payday 2 would get DLC until 2019, or at least support, and that Payday 3 would be developed faster. But just because Payday 3 has an accelerated development plan doesn't mean the game is any closer to being finished, because we have had no info, no trailers, no heisters, no character confirmations, no anything along any guidelines that give us any insight into what's happening with Payday 3. We know nothing. The only videos that have been out on YouTube talking about the actual game and speculation, as far as I know, are both from me, talking about what you guys like to see, what I would like to see in the game, but none of that is founded on official, solid information from Overkill, and Payday 3 has only been mentioned in passing by other YouTubers such as Connor Shaw or General McBadass. So, we literally know very little about the game. We don't know how close it is to being released, but it doesn't matter too much anyway because it's been put on ice. Will we see Payday 3? Again, same thing applies with Payday 2 on consoles. Depending on what they come out with their development roadmap and what they think is going to actually be worth carrying on with, we will see. Payday 3 is the most likely thing they will keep going on with. I don't see them cancelling it. If they get out of reconstruction, I would say all bets are on Payday 3 still being a thing. If they don't get out of reconstruction, then it's very much up to whether someone else wants to buy the Payday franchise the way Overkill and Starbreeze bought it from 505 Games. We really don't know. Payday may not be dead even if Starbreeze does go under after this reconstruction period, so we don't know yet. Let's keep it optimistic, keep our minds open, and see what happens in the coming months, and basically take assumptions from there. But that covers all the games that I wanted to talk about. Now what I want to go back to is something that I said a little bit earlier, in that I think that Starbreeze will come out of the better end of this reconstruction period, where they won't go under, they'll come back and they'll get back into developing as much as they possibly can with a fresh perspective and fresh attitudes. Why do I think that? Well, it's because at the same time that Starbreeze filed for reconstruction, the then CEO, Bo Anderson, was fired completely from the company. Now, I'm not somebody who would wish anything of any misfortune upon anybody, it's just not the way I am. But from what I've heard and what I'm about to get into, firing Bo from Starbreeze sounds like the best thing the company could have possibly done, because he has been running the show poorly behind the scenes with bad management, bad marketing, poor use of the stock markets, and so on and so forth. There's been a lot of things that I've been told by Matt and I've looked into and heard that just basically give off this vibe that Bo has been a terrible CEO. So what things have I heard about Bo in more detail? Well, first off, I've heard that he was one of the main men responsible, if not the only person responsible, for microtransactions being added to Payday 2 back in 2015. Remember when Stakes and Skins first got added and the community were outraged that they had to pay for them? That was down to him, not Overkill, not Almir, it was down to Bo Anderson. So if you think it's Overkill's fault, take that back, because it ain't on them. On top of that, he also pushed Raid World War 2 out the door. The fact that Raid could have been a lot better off when it launched was down to him. He was the one who said that day, he was the one who pushed the game out, when he probably knew damn well the game could have been a lot better had he waited a bit longer. According to my friend Matt on Twitter, one of his biggest mistakes was putting the entire studio and himself onto the stock market. And doing that opens up a whole new perspective where all he has to do is please his investors in his eyes. Forget consumers, keeping his investors happy is what is the most important thing to him. As a result of that, he poured a ridiculous amount of money into Star VR, which is the virtual reality headset that Starbreeze was developing, which, as I've said, appealed to investors a great deal, but to consumers had little or no consumer purchasing. No one really talked about it from what I've heard. I heard they were working on some kind of John Wick thing for the Star VR, but I never heard of any fruition for it, and even if it did, it probably did not sell very much at all. Because let's be fair, if you're going to get a VR headset, you're probably going to get PlayStation VR, or Oculus Rift, or the HTC Vive. I think those are the top three that I'm aware of. So, as far as I'm concerned, Star VR doesn't even come into it, and the amount of money that was poured into it was done so very, very foolishly. So it sounds as though there's a lot of bad management going on, I'm sure you would agree. Well, that's not all. There have apparently been rumours of insider trading to do with the stock market. In other words, passing confidential information about what's going to happen to the stock market value of Starbreeze to people who shouldn't know, or at least at times that shouldn't be shared. So basically telling someone the stocks are about to drop and to sell their shares when they shouldn't know that ahead of time. It's a very illegal thing to be doing, and as a result, this is one of the reasons that people are potentially believing that is linked to the raid of Starbreeze Studios that happened on Wednesday. Yes, the police did raid Starbreeze Studios in Stockholm in Sweden on Wednesday, and one person was arrested and detained. They also took some computers and some other things from the studios to do some more investigations, but insider trading is the main reason that people think that the actual raid was carried out. Now, don't quote me on this part, but Bo was also supposedly interviewed about this current situation, about the raid and what was going on, what had caused it, what was happening, who was arrested, and apparently he declined to comment on every single question apart from the one asking about his position in the company, in which he made abundantly clear that he was fired and it was not his own choice to leave the company. That was the only thing he seemed to care about saying to the media. So do with that what you will, make of that what you will. I just personally think it's very interesting to hear that he won't go into any details. Was it him who was arrested? Your guess is as good as mine. I honestly don't know. But somebody had also apparently said on Twitter that he's already in a different country. So it sounds like he's been kicked and he's run as far as he could, as quickly as he could. So who knows? Honestly, I really don't have much of a clue. But with all this being said and done, with Starbreeze being raided, with all the reconstruction, they have a lot to work through. But with Bo out of the picture, it sounds as though the new management, which is currently fronted by Deputy CEO Mikhail Nermark, it's hopeful that with him at the front and with all the other people who aren't big, greedy, investor-pleasing people, that hopefully, with a bit of luck and a bit of guidance and a bit of perseverance and fresh perspective, the company will come out of reconstruction and they will come off a lot better off. As a result, things like the Payday 2 console update, Payday 3's development can hopefully go back to the way they were before. That's what I'm hoping, and that's what I'm thinking we should see in future times. But that sums up everything I wanted to say about Starbreeze Studios, what's caused the problems, what the knock-on effects of those problems are, and any little bits behind the scenes. Now, before I end and I talk about my little bit about what you guys think about comments and all that stuff, there is a message I just want to put at the very end towards Starbreeze. And I don't want this to sound patronising. If at any point it does sound it, please forgive me. If at any point in this video, and even now, in my business jargon, I've said something wrong or incorrect or mistranslated from something Matt's told me, I apologise. Feel free to correct me in the comment section below, provided you have reasonable proof to do so. But this is a little message to Starbreeze. So to Starbreeze, if you are watching this video, if any of you working at Overkill or at Starbreeze or anyone else involved with the company is watching this, here's my message to you, which is that you've been through bad financial times before. You've had games that have flopped, you've had investments made into very poor decisions, and basically every time that that's happened, you've come out and you've still been at least somewhat intact. It's just a shame that this one time now, Overkill's The Walking Dead has been the straw that broke the camel's back, and it's sent you guys into reconstruction. That doesn't mean that it's the end for you guys, and hopefully it will not be the end. I hope that with everything I've said and done, you guys will come out a lot stronger, and if you do, my piece of advice to you is to forget everything else and focus on Payday 3. And that is not because it's the game I want to see. It is, but that isn't the reason that I'm saying it. It's not because that's what everyone else wants to see. It's because that is your cash cow. Everybody knows that with Overkill Team, the game that they are most popular for, most well known for, is Payday 2. Whenever you hear about Overkill's The Walking Dead, you hear Payday developer Overkill is making a Walking Dead game. Payday is a game that so many people in the media know about, and Payday 2 has generated you so much money. I can even recall reading up that at the time Payday 2 was on pre-orders, you gained so much money that you were already in profit before games even dropped, to the point where you decided to put the game out on disc for Xbox 360 and PS3 just because demand was so high. Payday is popular, and you don't need to even go into any new style of game or do anything radical to change that. People love Payday 2, they love Payday the Heist, and they want to see Payday 3, and they will put their money into that game. And from what I've seen, what I've spoken to about people in comment sections, about people on Twitter, I've asked all sorts of people across social media about what they want to see from Payday 3 in these videos, on other social media sites, and the thing that I hear the most is, yes, they have their own little thoughts, their own little ideas, their own little tidbits of thought for what they want to see in the game, but the core thing is that they just want to see Payday 2, but a bit more improved. Change a few things, make new heists, have new characters, new weapons, new outlooks on certain things, but the skill system, the way the game works at its core, the way you're earning money, what the money is going towards, the customization, everything about Payday 2 that people love, keep it. Don't waste time, energy and money making something different. Go for what people know and trust and just make it better and improve on it, and you will make a game that will sell provided you don't overcharge for it. That's all you got to do. If you have other projects like Storm, that sci-fi FPS that I've heard about that you're apparently working on in the background that Overkill are developing, pause that for the time being. Payday Crime War, if that needs a lot more money, pause that for the time being. Overkill's The Walking Dead, if you don't want to make any more DLC for the time being, pause that too. Cancel it, stop making DLC, whatever you want to do. Make Payday 3 the priority. That is my perspective, and I know without business expertise that might not be the best one, but from the point of a consumer, from someone who's been playing and purchasing your games for 4 years at least, I would like to say, as someone who's been playing your games for a while, that this is what I would think is the best decision. I might be wrong, and anyone else who passes their opinions might be wrong too, but that's the way I see it. But the key thing here is that I hope you get out. Whatever happens, and whatever you choose to do after the reconstruction period happens, I hope you get out on the good side and everyone gets to keep their jobs. That's the saddest thing about the video games industry at the moment, is that when game companies collapse, when publishers collapse, it's always at the expense of the people who did nothing wrong, the people who spent their days, their nights, all the time in their lives working for these companies just to be shoved out because of bad marketing decisions or unlucky turns and just basically unfortunate events that have happened. So hopefully you guys get out on the good side, and I will be closely monitoring the story, and if there is something to report to anyone watching this video, I will do so as and when it's needed. But that brings into my dialogue to Starbreeze and opens up a dialogue to you guys. What do you think about Starbreeze Studios' current financial situation? Do you think there is a specific reason that's caused the downfall? Do you think it's a combination of several? How much do you think Bo is to blame for the company's downfall and the current reconstruction period? What do you think about what's going to happen after they come out of it? Do you think they'll come out successfully or unsuccessfully? Do you think we'll get more console updates for Payday 2? What's going to happen with Payday 3 and Overkill's The Walking Dead, or even Storm? There is so much to talk about, and pick any one or all of those comments to discuss down below, and I will read as many of them as I can. I don't heart every comment the way I used to, because it gets too difficult to do so now, but there's about a 90% chance I'd like to say that if you leave a comment, I'm going to see it. So put it down and know that in your heart of hearts, as the phrase goes, I'll have seen your comments. So other than that, thank you all very, very much for watching. As always, it's very much appreciated to give your support on videos like these. If you have enjoyed, please do consider giving it a thumbs up. It is always super duper appreciated, and subscribe if you fancy seeing more videos like this. But other than that, thank you all very much for watching, and I will see you all with a brand new video next week. And until then, have a brilliant weekend. I'll see you all very soon. Take it easy.